Hi there, guys. Somebody asked me to do a video for this distance and midpoint. My video didn't upload well, and I had problems with that last year, so I need to put them. I started putting them on YouTube, and that worked better. So if you don't understand something and you need me to redo a video, please, please, please let me know. So vocabulary, segment bisector. The key to a bisector is that it is dividing in half, dividing equally. So if something is 8, then its bisector would be 4 and 4. So a segment bisector is any segment, line, or plane that intersects a segment. And it's really hard to explain that in this picture. So we're just going to keep going here. So here's some formulas you need to know. So one of them is called the distance formula on a number line. So it's absolute value. So that's what these bars are. Distance from 0. It is never negative. Absolute distance, never negative. So usually here are the two different formulas that you could use. So here's the formulas. So here, from here to here, I could look at my distance and say, oh, that's 3 units. Or I could use the formula and say -3 minus a -6, and then take the absolute value of that. So -3 plus 6 is 3. The absolute value of 3 is 3. Or if I started at -6 minus a -3, absolute value, -6 plus 3 is -3, which also equals 3, the absolute value, distance from 0. So here's this answer in using the different formulas or just counting the units. Next, we're going to talk about the distance formula if you're in the coordinate plane. So if you're in the coordinate planes, you have coordinates. So you have one that is called the distance formula, and I think I've discussed this. I am not a big fan of it because I can never remember it. So it's x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. And then you would take the square root of that, or simplify that square root. So in this next example here, we'll use that distance formula. So I'm going to use the distance formula for these 2 points. And then I'm going to do an example of the Pythagorean theorem. So I want to do distance formula, and then here is the formula. Like my notes to kind of, there. Okay, so here we go. So this, I'm going to say this is point 1, so that's x1, y1. Point 2, x2, y2. And it really doesn't matter as long as you've got them labeled. So as long as you don't flip-flop these. So we're going to do the square root of 3 minus a -4 squared plus -1 minus 1 squared. And if you would type that into your calculator just like that, see if I can get my calculator out so you can see it. Yeah, you can see it if I can stay out of that sunlight. So I'm going to solve what's in the radical or the square root part. I'm just going to solve this part first. And it's just like I have it. If you make one mistake, you get a syntax error. So what did I do? 3 minus a -4 squared plus a -1 minus 1 squared. Okay, so my answer is the square root of 53. Where the square root of 53 is simplified, so they might want your answer just like that. Or they might want you to solve it. So second square root 53, and then we would round it to 7.3. So either one of those might be your answer. If I choose to use the distance formula, that's fine. That's what it is. The other option is to use the Pythagorean theorem. And with the Pythagorean theorem, so like I said, you can use the Pythagorean theorem as well. And it's kind of hard to see here. Visually, you could do it. You know we've done that. But the way to do this, and if you don't put it on your notes, you won't understand. You find your distance between your x's and between your y's. So my distance between here and here is equal to -2 to +3 is 5. My distance between 3 and 15 is 12. So basically, those are your A and B. So 5 squared plus 12 squared equals C squared. Punch that into your calculator, you get 169. Square root of 169 is equal to 13. So I don't care how you do it. Those are two different ways to find distance. Okay, so now for midpoint. If I could turn the page. So midpoint, there's a formula for that. So if you're using a number line, if the question has to do a number line, then this is the formula. If you're doing midpoint, they're asking for the midpoint of a coordinate plane, then this is the formula. All right, so here we go. So they want to know the distance between A and B. Well, here's A, here's B. I'm sorry, not distance, but midpoint. So your midpoint, obviously, you can all see it, it's -8. From B to D, if you look, that's -7. So half of -7 is -3. But you can also use that formula up on top. So it says like -7 plus 0 divided by 2. So again, that's found up here. That's the same formula right here. So that equals -7 divided by 2, which is a -3.5. The coordinates one, this one is doing basically the same thing. So you're adding your x's and then you're adding your y's. So add x's, divide by 2, add y's, divide by 2. So what's 8 plus a -14 divided by 2? And -6 plus 12 divided by 2. So that's going to give us our xy value, because that's what we want, our xy value. This was our x. So what is 8 plus a -14? That's -6. -6 divided by 2 is -3. For my y, -6 plus 12 is +6 divided by 2 is +3. And so this is the point that is at the midpoint. This is the one that gets everybody. So you find the coordinates of D. If E is the midpoint, so here's D. I'm just going to make it in a straight line, even though it's not a straight line. E is your midpoint, which is -6, 4. This is E. And F is -5, -3. So there's a couple ways to do this. I look at my X pattern. So either move it this way or that way, depending on the direction you're going. So if I look at my x's, I'm going from -6 to -5. So when I'm moving this way on my x, I am taking my x and I am increasing by 1. If I look at my y and I'm going this way, 4 to a -3, +4 to a -3, I'm subtracting 7. So if I would take that same, since this is a midpoint, it's the same thing, but you're going the opposite direction. So I'm going to go this way. I would then subtract 1, x minus 1, and my y add 7. So for my x, I'm going to subtract 1, and I would be at -7. And then I'm adding 7 to 4 to make this 11. So look at your x, I should say, and y pattern and move it whichever direction you need to. So if I look here again, so that's -7, -6, -5. That's a lovely pattern. It's the same pattern. 11 to 4 is 7, subtract 7, subtract 7. So it's basically looking at the pattern. You will never remember the formula to do that. So to actually try to think of this mathematically, I think is your best bet. Is there more? I think that's it for today. Okay, so I hope that helped. If there's any problems with this video, let me know.